will summarize here. I had a little PowerPoint presentation with visuals to see who I'm about to talk about, but I will just summarize. Um, a young man growing up in a refugee camp in Ghana. I met a partner in 2005. We became partners. I had the opportunity to travel to Canada in 2006. And she had just completed high school. It was in nursing school. I had just completed college as well. And 2 years after staying in Canada, I decided to go back home and get married. And I married her in 2008. She was 20, I was 28 back then. She was welcomed to Canada in 2009, a year after. And the American dream plan, like every Oreo family. We were both very dedicated to what we intended to achieve as a young family. Both of us have full-time parents in full-time school. Her tenacity, her inspiration, her dedication to see her family do well made her to both beyond. In 2011, welcome our son, Leo. 2016, we welcome our daughter. In 5 years' time, he had built two very successful businesses. She was a big inspiration to women. Her goal was always to beautify women, inwardly, outwardly. And I see many of you around the world here have experienced the endowment that God placed upon her. These two are witnesses. They were good friends, Robert. And I also built a business. I was also uh, giving men confidence. I had a shoes and clothing store in Vancouver. Brand very successful for 10 years. Life was good. The American dream was some. 2020, the universe came calling. A simple workplace injury sustained by my wife. With consistent visits to emergency, consistent pains in the back and the leg. Unfortunately, on to 2020, 2 days to Christmas, as always, we ran to emergency. COVID was at its highest peak. And the most dreaded word that no man want to hear was pronounced upon my wife. Cancer. She was at stage 4 upon prognosis and diagnosis. The American dream was stolen, but it seems skated away. We were very, very successful young family. We weren't perfect people. Did not have a perfect match. But we were a very strong, excellent family. And many other young families took inspiration and motivation from. The American dream was strong. Mother, father, son, daughter, two successful businesses, gainful employments, a home of our own. We were in the process of acquiring our second home and working, competing down. All of the questions were being asked why. Unfortunately, 2021, 2 days ago was her third anniversary. Cynthia called her home. My children and I were faced with a burden. I suffered. My mental health was in a bad shape. My eyes would be open, but I wouldn't see. My dreams have faded. A beautiful American family had gone. Why me, Adam? Why my wife? Why our teacher? Why the first lady of our community? The Lord said these were in the book of Isaiah 55. My thoughts are not your thoughts. My words are not your words.
As the heaven is higher than the earth, so are my thoughts and my words higher than yours. He also say in the book of Matthew, in everything, other versions say, in all things, give thanks and praises. That's all that I could do. I'm blessed today to have very good friends, people that did not see my problems as they were, but hopped on board to join my journey along with me too. My family join on, my church members join on, with beautiful people. I can stand here today with a testimony to say that. With all of the anxieties, depression, forgetfulness, pain, in those periods, I was not just having the capacity to mourn a wife, to mourn the mother to my children, to mourn my partner, but I was also facing atrocities and crucifixion from the word. And I'm proud to be able to say, with God being above, I survived. I'm not where I need to be, but I'm not where I used to be. I'm blessed to be on this day. Thank you for the opportunity, sister. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Allen, for sharing such a sensitive topic. We were all affected by Jessica's passing. I knew Jessica when I go skip to Canada. She used to make my hair, so I saw her like every month. And because we braid her hair in a lot as black girls, so just make my hair. And I remember my last encounter with her was on my birthday, 2020. I was going out for dinner with my friends and she did my hair, the ponytail style, and I had put on my clothes. Like their house was like our second home, like we'll go there to offer you food, like VIP service when you're making getting your hair done. And I remember that night, so I was going out with my friends for dinner, and I was like, I put on this black dress, and Jessica had said, "Why did you take those earrings, Sosa? It's gonna fit perfectly." She was a giver, like she would give you anything you wanted it, and that was the last time I saw her. Um, those earrings, I haven't been able to toss them, even though they're bad now. Like they don't work anymore. I don't function well anymore. But I think that's just something I hold dear to me, and it's something that I know. I just it's something that reminds me of Jessica and who Jessica was. Uh, her legacy lives on. Her legacy lives on through her kids, your Titi, who is a striking resemblance of her mom. Titi is right there. Right. So I want to say thank you for sharing this story. We're all still shaken by her passing. It's something that we all cannot believe happened because it was so sudden. In just a short period of time, she was gone. So, my first question to you, Esther, is when things like this happen, because life is very predictable, how do we find coping mechanisms?
Thank you so much. I think, first of all, I have to acknowledge that when things like this happen, because it's most often a shock to many, to the individual that might be going through it, we go through the process of grieving, right? And I want to say something. It's okay not to be okay. I think we all come from different cultures, upbringing, and grief is quite different for everyone. And it's very important for you, the individual, to allow yourself to, first of all, process. Um, and identify what it is that you might need in order for you to feel supported. Because a lot of times, I always put it in three categories. We have the beginning stage of grief, where that is where the administrative things might be going on, family might be around, or if you don't have family, a lot of processes might be going on. And for a lot of us that come from culture where it's more community, you have a lot of people around you, And in those moments, the grief process sometimes hasn't started. Even though we might be crying and we might be sharing tears, the grief process hasn't really started. But when everyone else leaves and you're by yourself, that is when the grieving really starts for a lot more people. And that is where you taking the moment to really even look at it in a way of, if I have myself sitting in the chair opposite me, what would it need? That is a part of myself. In those moments, what would they need? What supports would they need? Because what I would think as supports to you might not necessarily be support to you. I always tell my clients this: people will offer you what they think you need, not what it is that you need. And until you start asking and seeking what it is that you might need, support might not be support to you. And it might become irritating, it might become annoying, it might become frustrating, and at times even discouraging. And so it's very important for you to take time, right, for yourself in those moments to identify what it is that you need. Reaching out can be very, very important. I know I will speak for myself. I felt from a culture where we're told to be strong, right? So being strong means don't seek support. Read by yourself. And it at times discourages people from reaching out. And it's very important. I'm using and not that. And it's very important because I want to also acknowledge and validate that part shaping us. It's very important for us to still reach out, right? Journaling, right? Sleeping. I know it sounds very common, but to sleep, it's very important to rest the body, because grief doesn't only impact you emotionally, it does impact you as a whole when you're going through something. So it impacts the physical body, it impacts the mind, it impacts the emotion, right? It impacts sleep, it impacts the way we eat, and it even impacts the way we see our surroundings and the weather. And, cold might feel hot, hot might feel cold. As you guys can know, I'm sweaty when I now started talking about it, because it is. And so it's very important for you to take time for yourself to say what it is that am I needing. Journaling, and everyone else is different. Everything out there might not necessarily work for you. Finding exactly what you need could be very supportive to you. Reach out to professionals. If you have a society or a church, reach out to people, right? There are resources that we can reach out to. And I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge Mary in the crowd. The reason why it takes a lot of courage to say here as well. She lost her son through suicide, and sitting here and listening to this as well. So I want to acknowledge that piece. We are all grieving in one way or the other. Grief is not only a loss of a person, it's a lot more than that. And so taking time for yourself is very
Yeah, I like when you talk about that. Are you able to explain the different types of grief? Because when we hear the word grief, most of the time we think about the loss of a loved one and individual.
Yes, definitely. Grief shows up, or loss shows up in different way. Change in life, migration, relocation, losing a job, changing a job, divorce, right? The children leaving the nest, even can trigger some forms of grief, like loss in friendship, trust, betrayal. There are different losses that we all experience, and it can bring grief for a lot of people. Then again, also let me name it as depending on what has shaped your concept of grief. You might be in one situation, but someone else might not be in that same situation. So I also want to acknowledge and name that piece as well. But we've studies have shown us that there are 43 losses that are considered a past grief, right? And these are just a few that I have named. So,
Thank you. Mr. Eda, what coping mechanisms have you used since the passing of your wife or the loss of your wife?
I've experienced loneliness at its highest. I remember getting gun in the face and asking him to help me die. That's where I was. Like I said, at the same time, I was also facing atrocities and crucifixion.
What kind of
So I had to prioritize. I think there are a lot of Africans in the building here.
When you're from Africa and a young person passes away, that cannot be known.
I was in the middle of that. Grieving someone that I've been with for almost 2 decades.
Person who land our life into what it was.
We got families and friends. Wakey, there's a supernatural cause behind your wife's pass. That was a bigger relief. It did not give me chance to grieve her in the way that I wanted to, but I had to prioritize. So I did not have the answers to the questions. I had to prioritize. My priority was being mature through the help of my faith, God, and judging myself, preventing myself from following what was said, what I heard, and looking at my 2 children in the face. And that was the reason why I was able to cope. And I said, this shall not be disadvantaged any longer than what has already happened. And I apologize to them for taking I could have as going to have passed. And I sang songs that I cope with. God will work it out. My God will work it out. One thing I know, one thing I found is that God, you work it out. I didn't care to know how he was going to do it, but I knew he was going to. I'm a musician. I put my earphones in my ear, go in my basement, get up my drum kit, play songs, and just play out my pains, my confusion through worship songs. Also, there's a acronym called DEER. Dear. I was able to pray, so I call it Pray Dear. I was praying through worship and Thanksgiving. D stands for drinking. I'm not a big eater. People who here know me. I don't eat easily, but I was drinking enough to hydrate myself for the amount of fuel that I was losing through Christ, through the lack of eating. E stands for exercise. I was in the gym. I'm a very old man sitting here, but I work out well. I'm almost 50 years old. And I kept being in the gym as long as I could. In my own basement, I was not bored to get out. But I also, after exercising, eating, and I also fought to relax. I know you talk about that. You don't sleep. You drink day and night. I drank about 2-3 times a day. And so I fought to put myself in a position of relaxation, but not with the expectation of sleeping. So I would say those are the few things that I did to be able to reach to where I am. Like I said, it's still a journey. But I'm in a better place than I used to be.
Thank you for sharing it. Just something that I would like to ask. Being African, being Nigerian, I don't know about like other African cultures because Africa is so big, but I know death is not something that we talk about a lot, and we're not really prepared for it. And it's something that could happen at any point in time. You know, you see someone as a registered nurse, I see someone who is sick, and I know this person is going to die, maybe in 3 days and 4 days, but they're not gonna last more than a week here. You have mentioned something saying that when Jessica was very sick, um, you couldn't ask her the one question you wish you asked her, which was, what do you want to be done at your funeral? How do you want us to conduct your funeral? Because at that point in time, perspectives had shifted. You know, the focus was more on how was she gonna survive prayers, but that wasn't working out, and it was something that, you know, it was difficult to accept, right? So how do we change that mindset? How do we change that shift? And are you okay? Okay. How do we change that shift? I only got to know more about death because going to nursing school, people are gonna die. Even the people tell you're gonna bad people. So you see that it's part of life, right? Only through going through my training line, I realized, or I accepted the fact that death is indeed part of life. It's a cycle of life. It must happen. In order to be born, you're gonna have to die one day. This is not our home, right? Permanently. So how do we change that shift, and more so accept the reality at hand? And then you go first and I'll ask Esther. The same question. Eh?
I had the opportunity to, when she was diagnosed and prognosed, she was getting 4 months to live. She lived close to a year almost. And I had the opportunity to literally live with her in the hospital. It was COVID time, nobody was allowed, but I was allowed. Because a close window of hours. My wife had like 8 to 10% of her life. And because we're so indoctrinated and very strong with our faith, telling a person about death is a no-go zone. Do I have a witness here, Africans? Yeah. So we could not tell her about death. And she did not have the license to even talk about, can I talk? Can I say something to you? Yes. That is fate. That when the mouth speaketh, comes to life. And I had Dave in the other room, and also as I was holding her hand, Dave called, and I was hearing Dave. Dave is a guy who could walk around the hospital with his phone in his hand, call his family, go outside for a smoke, and come back. Dave had about 40% of his life. He had been prognosed to die as well, suffering cancer as well. And Dave called the doctors and said, can you come? I need to follow on what we talked about. And the doctors and 2 nurses came. And long story short, and Dave said, when is my going date? And I'm still shooting my wife's hand and praying to the Spirit. And doctor says, so Dave, you're very serious about what's happening? And Dave said, yes. There was something called an AD, medical assisted death. And Dave's wife is at the head of Dave's bed. And the doctor said, is your wife and your children aware? She responded and said, oh yeah, on the way. And we've talked about it as a family. If you're African, you hear that is an abomination. And my head was rising on my shoulder. Listening to that, we just pray in the spirit, God, don't let my wife rise up from this bed. Don't let her see. Keep her sleeping. I don't want her to hear what's happening. I think it was also unethical to allow such a wall to have such a conversation with another client as well. So the nurse and the doctors, they had some problems for that. And long story short, and I asked Dave, when are you willing to go? And he said, on Friday. And I had a wife for less than 10% of her life. And her hope and faith was like somebody who's coming out of the hospital in 2 days' time. That just shows that we don't allow our people, no matter how much faith that we have in our God, reality still sits there every day. And prognosis are there to tell you that this person's going to die. But because we will look in their face and tell them, who are you to not believe what we pray for? I, as a young man, I have prayed and fasted dry fast for 40 days. She looked at me and said, baby, you are evil. I'm like, why am I evil? She said, because you want to join me in this hospital because you know we got also severe also, and I'm born again, I'm sick, and you want to join me and leave our 2 babies unattended. Please leave the hospital and go back home. 40 days is enough because I was looking to take it to 100 days. And she stopped me. What I'm trying to say is that every time that I spent with her, I did not have the courage like Dave or Dave's wife to be able to look at my wife. Because I remember the day that Dave was taken away, the day before, he had a live conversation with his 2 children at home. Dad, you about to go? You going soon. We wish you all the best and know that we love you. We never stop loving you. And I'm there praying. No. And I'm praying. And the doctor looked at David and said, so this is how it's going to happen. We're going to bring some nurses. They're going to take care of you. Take your favorite clothes that you've chosen. And Wednesday, we're going to take you upstairs. And you're going to read your favorite book and blah, blah, blah. And we're going to send you home. And I heard this, that. That's okay. That's what I've been praying for because I don't want my family to suffer anymore. And we're here as a community battling to our God that we believe in. So long story short, one of the worst regrets that I've had was not giving Jessica the opportunity if she had something to say to her little daughter. Titi, be a good girl. Leo, stay by your dad. Baby, never saw her come. I could see the urge in her eyes many days, but we didn't give her the chance to have expressed inner those because of our tradition, because of our reality, our faith. If you be the person to look at this person and say, what do you have to say to us? You're the one for literally. You know what I mean. So that's all I can say. That's one of the regrets. And we don't venture with those areas in the African community, in our African beliefs. So she went home and I did not have any regrets because we turned every stone that needed to be built.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Muffin.
Yeah, so responding in the same way, I think because culture forms part of a person's identity, culture is a way of being. What we've been taught, right, growing up or, through community, it's gonna take time to unlearn a lot of that. And I think it comes from a place of first of us, all of us acknowledging some of the beliefs that we all come with and the education, right? But also, you know, added on to what we've already learned and educating each other about what grief can look like other than what we've been taught it should look like, right? um and also, holding space as we do that, because the thing though is if we want to change things, then there's going to be a lot of resistance, right? Because there's a root to where we've come from, right? And what is ingrained within us. It takes time for change to happen. And so we have to approach it more from a place of curiosity and a place of conversation and a place of not trying to correct wrongs, but from a place of adding on to what we've learned, right? Because there's a lot of value within what we've learned. That's what's made us who we are. And it's also created a lot of harm for us as well, right? So approaching it more from a place of curiosity and care and compassion and kindness could, I think, help us a lot to unlearn a lot of the beliefs that is hurting us in the way we grieve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Esther, for that insightful addition to the conversation. Let's sort of open up the floor for questions. For anyone who has questions for Esther or Adam, please ask your questions. Put up your hand, and we'll get someone to bring the mic to you.
So yeah, what the G? Would I just repeat that for them? It's not actually a question, but it was the way I felt when I lost my brother. When I lost my brother, it was like a life was taken out of me. It was like I was gone. When I went to visit him, I saw where they wrote cremation. I saw it. It was a denial to me. The absence. I said he was not going to die. But it was like, was I deceiving myself? Or, we Christians would pray, and I knew there would be a miracle I was going to be. I saw cremation, and I said, no, it's going nowhere. Honestly, when I came back to Canada from Wales and I was called he died, it was like he died in a motor accident. It was like I never knew he was sick. The way I wailed and the way I cried, I didn't care where I bought. I cried and my heart almost stopped. It was that bad. So it's like a denial thing. You can't be asking somebody how you want your burial to be in African culture.
I couldn't ask my brother that. He said, I wish he lived. So that's how I felt. Even just only yesterday night, I was playing jazz because he taught me music. And I remembered everything about him. And I was like, oh, I was with him. So I remember every day, there's no day I don't remember my brother because he was my mentor. It was different. Like,
So I was just listening to Sosa's Marvin speak, and I lost my brother in 2018. My husband and I and our kid moved from Nigeria in 2017. And so to date, like when she was saying that there's no day she doesn't think about her brother. It's the same for me every day. And I know I'm still in denial. And what I tell myself is, I haven't seen him because I haven't gone back to Nigeria. I'm sure he's in these. That's what I tell myself. I know it's not true. And I do not think about him in the past tense in most cases in my head. When I think about him, when I talk about him, it's in present tense because I haven't, come to terms with it. That's all that I just tell myself when I go to Nigeria. I'm going to say, I haven't seen him because I am here. How would you, and where we come from, a lot of us think, things are changing and the narrative is changing, but a lot of us still, to a large extent, not really, not that we don't believe in therapy, but even when we do believe, we know, okay, even therapy works, some of us would still not see ourselves, schedule the time with therapists to go for therapy. I do believe in therapy, even though I haven't gone for one yet. But how would you advise one to get past that stage of denial?
First of all, I run off note. I want to state that thank you for the question. Denial is part of the grieving process, right? And so, experiencing it doesn't mean that you're stuck, right? If I should put it in that way. And it's part of the grieving process. So we go through a shock and denial, right? And a lot of times when we don't process grief, that we can stay in the denial stage for some people can stay there 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And that's why someone will say, how come I'm not moving on, right? To get through it is to do the taking the action, doing the processing work to be able to move past that stage of denial, right? And I know that therapy is not an everybody's thing. And I want to also acknowledge I come from a culture that therapy wasn't a thing. So when I told my dad I want to be a therapist, he was not in the fire. I mean, as an African father being amazed is a different amazement, right? But that means that upon all the occupations you could have done, you chose to be a therapist. When you come back home, what are you coming to do? But anyway, what I'm trying to say is it's okay to, take time to really process that, right? And to identify, what is in the need or what is my denial trying to tell me? If my denial should speak to me, what would it like to tell me? It's probably, I don't want to assume, it's telling you that I still can't accept, right, that my brother has passed. What would it need in order for it to get to that place is where the processing work starts, right? So I would always encourage you reach out to a professional. And if you don't have a professional, then these could be sort of questions that we can ask ourselves is what do I need, right? In order for me to be able to get to that place where I can come to acceptance with it. And it's a process. It really is a journey. I always say it's a journey, right? And there's going to be stops, there's going to be breaks. And it's okay in those moments, taking moments and staying there and identifying what it is that you need to be able to move to that next stage for yourself.
Excellent. Now, in the interest of time, we can only take one more really quick one. Anyone else with a question or comment?
It's not even a question. I want to give Adam a hug.
Thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Adam. Thank you so much, Esther, for sharing as well. I actually call him Uncle Adam. I got to know him through his life.
It took me 2.5 years. There's so many invitations for people to hear my story, for me to share, and I refused. And it's been a year. She and I have been working on it because I've been, like she says, it's a journey. Been giving myself a chance to reach to a place where I was prepared. And the first invitation is Sosa's talk show. So I'm like, what's up?
And I want you to always know that her legacy lives on in the lives that she touched. Your children, us, will always remember her and talk about her and act out the things she taught us. So
And the PowerPoint, I actually have both of them, the shiny faces, the PowerPoint convert. Thank you. Thank you guys for listening.